This is Professor James Strickler, and this is a course in American government. This lesson is from Unit 1, about theories of government. It is Lesson 10, about the origin of ideology. In this lesson, you'll learn about what is ideology, about American ideologies, about the origin of ideology, about the French radical position, and about the French monarchist position. In previous lessons, we learned that the problems of living without government would naturally lead us to want a government to provide us with security for our lives, our liberty, and our property. We then learned that America's founding fathers chose to form the United States government as a deliberative republic. Now we will consider the question of what the government should be asked to do with the powers that it is given. To answer this question, we must first understand the concept of ideology. Ideology may be defined as a person's view of what the world should be like, and how they think political life should be arranged and conducted to bring about that vision. What sort of ideological positions drive political debates in the United States? Or put another way, what are America's ideologies? In the United States of America, politicians are generally said to reside in one of two ideological camps. One is called liberals, and the other is called conservatives. What is the origin of these ideological labels, and what do they mean? We can begin to discover the answer to that question by visualizing an ideological spectrum. A spectrum, like this, arranges ideological positions on a gradual continuum between two extremes. At one end of this spectrum, we can place liberals. On the other end of the spectrum, we can place conservatives. This then leaves political moderates in the middle of the spectrum. This arrangement still does not tell us what the beliefs are that are held by these ideological camps, but it does help us understand their relative positions compared to each other. To learn why liberals and conservatives inhabit these relative ideological positions, let's go back to where this classification system began. The way that we now understand ideologies has its roots in another country over 200 years ago. In 1789, the French National Assembly was embroiled in a historic debate. The National Assembly was a body of representatives who had been originally called into service by the French king to help deal with a financial crisis. But they moved beyond their assigned duties to undertake a reformation of all French society. The king attempted to disband them. They then considered the question of whether the king should be dethroned. This conflict in the French National Assembly gave rise to the way we see ideology today. In the assembly, as the dispute over the king raged, positions became so heated that some participants separated themselves to the left of the meeting's president. Their opponents separated themselves to the president's right. Those who sat to the left were called radicals, because they wanted to undertake the radical objective of removing the king. Those who sat to the right were called monarchists, because of their preference to still have a king. The radicals who sat to the left were inspired by philosophers, who were collectively called liberals. In our next lesson, we will learn how those philosophers justified the desires of the radicals, and why those philosophers were given the name liberals. The monarchists who sat to the right were reacting to the ideas of the radicals when they expressed their intent of conserving the monarchy. Because of these divisions in the French National Assembly of 1789, the term the left became associated with the ideological position of liberals, while the term the right became associated with the ideological position of conservatives. That completes this lesson. Now, let's review what we have learned. What is ideology? Is it what heaven will be like? Or is it what it is thought the world should be like? Is it political party affiliation? Or is it proper government structure? Ideology is what a person believes the world should be like. What are the most common American ideologies? Are they socialist and fascist? Or are they Democrat and Republican? Are they atheist and theocrat? Or are they liberal and conservative? The most common ideological positions in America are liberal and conservative. What is the origin of the way we classify political ideologies? Was it the Supreme Soviet of 1917? Or was it the French National Assembly of 1789? Was it the Continental Congress of 1776? Or was it the United States Congress of 1868? The French National Assembly of 1789 gave us our way of arranging political ideologies. Which is not a characteristic of French radicals? Is it that they sat to the left? Or is it that they followed liberal philosophers? Is it that they wanted to remove France's monarch? Or is it that they despised violence? French radicals did sit to the left. They followed the liberal philosophers, and they wanted to dethrone the king. They did not despise violence. Which is not a characteristic of French monarchists? Is it that they sat to the right? Or is it that they supported the king? Or is it that they wanted major reforms? Or is it that they reacted to the radicals? French monarchists sat to the right, supported the king, and reacted to radical actions. The monarchists did not want major reforms. That completes this lesson. The next lesson will also be from Unit 1. It'll be Lesson 11 about classical liberalism.